Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. This is Ahmad, and in today's lesson we're going to discuss adding a picture or an image onto your HTML website. So we're going to add the HTML code in order to put an image onto the page. We're going to add CSS styling to do some type of, styling to our image. And we're even going to add a neat little JavaScript function to do some type of feature to our image, right? So the first step is adding our image onto our HTML page, right? So let's just go to, Google and put adding picture HTML, right? Or adding image to HTML. And then we see, hey, look, so many references. Let's go with W3 School just because we're used to it, right? And they give us the definition and then also a example line of code of adding an image to our HTML page. And that's with the img or image tag. So let's go to our code and let's put those tags, right? And then you see immediately the image is kind of unique, right? Because we discussed before that all HTML elements have to have the opening and closing tag, right? Like we did with header, like we did with the paragraph, like we did with button, like we did with 99% of HTML elements. However, image is one of the exceptions where you only need the opening tag. Don't take this as a rule, it's the exception, right? Within the image tag, you see two main properties. You see the source property, and that's where you're going to point to the location of the image, right? Because you're saying to your page, show me an image. Well, we have to tell the code where that image or that picture is so it can display it, right? And the second, which is an optional property, we don't need this. Basically all it does is saying, hey, if this image can't be loaded for whatever reason, I want you to display this text, whatever you want. We're going to take it out because it's not needed and it doesn't really do anything really important. So in our image tag, we have to tell our code where that image is. So first step is let's get an image or let's get a picture. So let's put football and go to images and let's just save a picture, right? So we'll go to this guy, right click or double click if you have a Mac, and then save image as. We're going to save it at our desktop, the same location as our HTML page, save it, and then we have our image here. So the first way is by pointing to the location of where the image is on your computer. So in the source, this file is already in desktop. So since this file is in desktop as well, all I have to do is copy the name of the file. So not open it, right? Let's just copy the name. In our source, so you see the name of the file is exactly what I put in source. So let me save my HTML file and let's open it up in a browser, and you see, bam, look, on our HTML page we have that image that we're referring to, that we want to point to, right? And it's showing that right on our page. And again, if this file was not in desktop, like let's just say we put it in a folder called let's change the name to pics, right? Let's just say this was the location of the picture, not in the desktop, but in a folder called pics inside the desktop. If you were to refresh, you see that our image doesn't load. And the reason is because it's not located in desktop anymore. It's located in pics football JPEG. So if now we refresh our page, it now has the right location, the right place of where it's at in order for it to display it. So that's something to note, that depending on where you save your HTML file and where you save your image, this source is going to have to point to it in a way for you to show it on your page. So just a point of reference in the future, save your images and your HTML files in the same place so this property can be easier to maintain. So that's the first way you can reference an image in your image tag in HTML, by pointing to it locally. But let's just say we didn't want to save the image, right? Like, why do I have to save every single picture that I want on my website onto my local computer? Well, you don't have to. There's a different way you can do it. So let's go to a different image. Let's go to a different type of football, right? Soccer. And let's right click. And this time, instead of saving the image onto our local machine, let's click this button which says copy image address, or for some of your computers it might say a different like copy image link or something. It doesn't matter. This is the selection that we want, right? We want to copy that. And just to show you what this does, if we paste that URL we just copied into the browser, it shows you just the image because we're pointing directly to where that image is stored in the internet, right? and this is its location. So we're going to copy this URL, and we're going to make another image, right? And for source here, remember, I don't have that image saved on my computer. I just put the URL or the address of where that image is, and I can reference it just like that. So if I go back to my page and refresh, underneath this football logo or this football, I have the other image that I got from online. So that's the two ways where you can reference an image from your HTML code to display onto your website. The first, if you save it locally on your machine, and second, if you just have an image that you've seen online and you don't want to save it on your computer, you can reference it in this way. So that's all you need to know really about writing HTML code displaying a picture onto your page. The second thing we said we're going to do is add styling onto our images, because as you see, these images are big, they're taking up all of the screen. We don't want to do that, right? We want to add some type of styling to make it a little neater, a little nicer, a little more organized. So now in our style tags, we want to apply styling to these images, right? And of course, we need to reference these images somehow. Let's do it with the ID, right? And let's give this ID a football image. And again, this can be anything. I just chose to use that name. And the second can be soccer pick, right? Just to change up the name. Now I can reference each one of these images from my CSS code. And we said the way we can do that is by using pound or the hashtag and using the ID, right? So now I'm saying, hey, go to the element with the ID football image and of course curly braces. And we want to apply the width style to this, right? The width style property. As we took in all of our math classes or whatever, everything has a height and width. I'm saying, hey, I want you to change the width of this image to 100 pixels, px. And pixels, all it is, for example, your computer, it doesn't know centimeters or inches, it knows pixels, right? And pixels is what your screen technically is. Like, how we hear 4K display or 4K TV, right? That means 4,000 pixels, right? So this is saying, hey, the width or the size of this image is 100 pixels. So we added that. Let's save and let's refresh. And immediately you see our image is much smaller because we gave it the width of 100 pixels. So let's do the same for our other image. So now let's put pound, and this ID is called soccer pick and curly braces, and let's use width again, and this time let's put at 200 pixels. Save, refresh, and now we see both of our images have a new size that's more small, that's better fitted on our screen, and how we added styling to them. Now, of course, we have so many other properties we can apply, and which we will learn in future lessons to apply to an image. But for now, we at least seen what type of styling and where it goes when we want to apply it to an image. Last step we want to do is create a function in JavaScript to do some type of neat functionality to our images. For now, let's add a button, right? And we want to say, click me to change pictures, right? So we're basically making a button on our screen to say, hey, when someone clicks on this button, change the images that are on the screen, okay? So of course we're going to do this with JavaScript, because as we said, that's the role of JavaScript in our world, right? So how can we do that? We need to make a function, if you guys remember from episode 3. So function, we're going to call this switch images. Again, any name that you want, even if you don't want to use that name. Keyword function, and then we have our parentheses, and then we have our curly braces, right? Remember from previous lessons. And now we're going to put our code in here. But first, we need to reference this function from our HTML code to display onto our browser. So we said we can do that with the onClick property. And that says that when someone clicks on this button, we're going to render or return the result of a certain function. The function we are using is called switch images, right? So let's copy that name and let's put it inside of our onClick property. So now we're saying again, when someone clicks on this image, go to this function and return the result of this function. So now we're in our function. We want to use, we said we want to change the image that is displayed to the user. In other words, we want to change the source, right? So let's write some JavaScript code for that. So what we're going to say is document, right? dot get element by ID. And what this means, guys, is I'm telling my code to go to the document, and the document is everything, right? And get the element with the ID of. So I'm saying go to all of these HTML elements and get the one that has the ID of, let's use this ID, right? So that's saying get the ID with the name football image, and let's change the source, right? That's what we're changing, right? And we're going to assign it the value by putting one equal sign of a different source, right? So again, reading this code is saying document, which is everything in our file, and get the HTML element with the ID of football image. So it's going to get this element, right? And we're going to assign the equal sign value to the source, right? And we're going to give it a new source. So let's go online and let's put this time basketball. And let's get any image, and let's copy the image address, right? Because we don't want to download every single time. And we're going to say this. So let's read this line of code again, just to make sure everyone's on pace and understanding what's happening. I'm saying when someone clicks this button, go to this function. And this function says, go to the document, which is everything here, go to the element with the ID of football image, which is this guy, and then I want you to assign a new value to source, which is represented with the equal sign, right? And this will be the new source of that image. Pretty clear. And now let's do the same thing for our second image. So we're going to write the same exact thing, document dot get element by ID, parentheses, quotations, and this time we have a different ID. We have soccer pick, and we want to change the source again, right? We're going to use equal to represent assigning a new value, right? And we're going to put a new image address. So now let's put baseball, and let's get this image, let's get the image address, and let's paste it in here. Again, remember from previous lessons that all lines of JavaScript must end in a semicolon. Well, there it is. So now let's see if our code works. Let's save. Let's go back to our HTML file. Let's refresh. We see our image. Let's click them. And then bam, we see as soon as we click the image, we're able to change the source of the image to something new. So now you see how we just applied basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code onto images or pictures onto a website. And that is it for this lesson. If you didn't understand, please rewatch this lesson and any other lesson in order for you to get the concept. And I will see you guys in another lesson where we will take another HTML element. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.